Hi everyone, I'm a former chronic insomniac of 20 years, now trained in sleep medicine, and today I'm going to be reacting to the sleep doctor. From my work with both the NHS, MOD and countless clients, I'm going to be sharing with you what works and what most certainly doesn't, so that you don't make the same mistakes I did. Let's go.
So let's break these down into the six different types of non-pharmacologic or behavioral treatment for insomnia. Number one is sleep hygiene. Again, everybody should probably get a little bit of sleep hygiene. And these are the basic recommendations here, is you want to regularize your sleep-wake schedule. You gotta be consistent. Remember, your body functions best on consistency, and most people with insomnia are very inconsistent.
So I would say, yeah, it's helpful in the early stages at least to have a regular sleep-wake cycle. However, you don't create that by going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. You only create that by waking up at the same time, as this anchors your body clock and your sleep drive. If, however, you go to bed at exactly the same time and set your bedtime by your watch, you'll just lie there in bed, awake, frustrated, angry, and annoyed, and that makes sleep even harder to come.
It's stimulants and stimulating behavior, caffeine, nicotine, illegal illicit substances, all of those things are really going in the wrong direction. Also stimulating behavior, like right before bed, it's probably not the best idea to play a video game. Also, establishing a relaxing bedtime routine is critical.
People can get very obsessive when it comes to sleep. You can't do this, you can't do that. No caffeine, no alcohol. And yet it's helpful not to have 20 espresso shots to the eyeballs before bed, but no one with insomnia are doing that. And people with insomnia already know this stuff. And I think it's helpful with your sleep to have that balance. Yet helpful generally to stop drinking caffeine after 3 p.m. But if your friend asks you out to a coffee shop at 3:22, get stuck in, do that. And alcohol, normal behaviors of a normal sleeper is what I recommend. So yes, generally good advice, but please don't get too controlling and obsessed around this, because people with insomnia are controlling and obsessive about everything when it comes to their sleep, and it really does not help. It's one of the major driving forces behind this condition.
Critical to overall sleep hygiene. And once you've got structure and you're in the process, your anxiety begins to reduce, and that's what we're looking for. Obviously, you need to have a conducive sleep environment. I personally believe that sleep is a performance activity. And so you've got to have the right equipment to perform well. And especially for folks with insomnia, this turns out to be actually one of the more critical aspects. Good news is we've done a ton of reviews of mattresses and pillows.
Sleep isn't a performance activity. Dogs know how to sleep. Kittens, they're not going, I really need to get the perfect bedroom environment in order to sleep tonight. And before people have insomnia, they don't have to have everything perfect either. And trust me, I changed mattresses 10, 15 different times during my insomnia. None of that fixed my fear of the bed and the bedroom, my constant sleep obsession, the control, the anxiety around sleep. Buying a new mattress is, your mattress could be absolutely perfect. You're not going to fix a long-term chronic problem by buying a new mattress from someone. And yeah, no.
Here on Sleep Doctor. So if you ever want, check those out, because there's a lot of good information there. Other things, no naps. If you got insomnia, the worst possible thing you could do is nap. And I get it, you're exhausted and you're just dying for like 5 or 10 minute nap. What that do is that lowers your sleep drive and it makes it very difficult for you to fall asleep. So once again, general guidelines of sleep hygiene, no naps.
And again, if we see insomnia as a control and an obsession issue, if you've already got loads of strict rules about things you can and cannot do when it comes to your sleep, and generally, yes, when you're doing CBTI, which is what I help people with, a soft, gentle approach to CBTI, you don't want to be having long naps, because yes, if you're using naps to compensate for poor quality sleep at nighttime, it can certainly affect the sleep you get at night. However, just a 5 or 10 minute nap, like he said, really isn't going to break your sleep at nighttime. What it might do is help you reduce a little bit of anxiety and help you step out the storm for a bit. So is it wrong advice? No, but it's too extreme. That middle path, that middle way is a much more gentle approach to insomnia treatment. And when I'm working with people, I say, look, generally don't nap, especially in the early stages. If you have one, fantastic. It just showed that you were naturally looking forward to sleeping, and you napped and you were fine. You didn't catch on fire. Wonderful. So yeah.
Also really try to eliminate alcohol and caffeine. Neither one of them is necessary in your diet, and both of them mess up your sleep in very big ways.
Covered
if you
this already.
already have insomnia,
No fear, please.
Adding alcohol or adding caffeine to the mixture only makes it more complicated. So I really try to get people to lower that, at least during the treatment phase, so that way we can get them sleeping better again. I have to tell you that one of the best things that you can do to improve sleep quality, even if you're an insomniac, is to have regular exercise. It couldn't be more important.
So we would go back to that first point. I said about the alcohol and caffeine. It is really important. It's critical. You can't do this, you can't do that. When you've got a laundry list of 1,000 things you cannot do, it just creates more obsession and control around your sleep. So everything within that normal range is helpful. Avoiding no alcohol at all is not going to fix a chronic sleep problem, same as about getting a mattress as well.
And the data is super duper clear. You don't have to run a marathon. 20, 25 minutes of cardio and maybe some weights is all you need, and it will absolutely, positively help your sleep. And then another big one, and this is...
Exercise is helpful. Yeah, science has shown that regular exercise will reduce the amount of time it takes you to fall asleep and reduce nighttime awakenings. But this is amongst people who are already good sleepers. If you're exercising in order to try and fix chronic insomnia, you'll exercise with the intention of trying to make yourself sleep. You'll use lots of force, you'll use lots of effort, and it can actually backfire. So yeah, once you've got your sleep drive and your body clock working for you rather than against you, and you've dealt with the anxiety around your sleep, and certainly exercise can be helpful. But if that in and of itself is not going to fix this problem, but it's a helpful thing to do alongside these other behavioral changes. And if he doesn't cover them in the video, I'm certainly going to do so before the end.
So hard to do is don't look at the clock. So many people look at the clock, and what does it do?
I agree.
They instantly do the mental math, and then they're upset. Oh crap, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I still haven't fallen asleep. Their anxiety goes up and everything is out the window. So these are some great guidelines that you can use across any of the treatment modalities. And I will tell you that in some cases, just sleep hygiene alone fixes it all. The second one is...
No, sleep hygiene won't fix insomnia. Sleep hygiene can certainly improve, not great sleep, but insomnia, anxiety, obsession, control, fear, seeing everything through the lens of will I sleep tonight, won't I sleep tonight. Sleep hygiene won't touch the sides.
It's called stimulus control. So this is, again, an idea that you have classically conditioned yourself to do more than sleep in your bed. So what we have to do is reestablish the bed as an only sleep and sex place. You and your partner, you're not working on your computer, you're not watching TV, you're not even reading. You want to go to bed only when you're sleepy, get out of bed when you're unable to sleep, and wake up at a consistent time, including the weekends. You've got to get up at the same time, including the weekends, for this to work. One of my favorite techniques is called sleep restriction. Now, if you remember...
So in terms of what he said about stimulus control, I think it's been a little bit overblown that you have to only sex and sleep in your bed. The way I see it, and with my own work with thousands of clients and everything I know about sleep and having chronic insomnia myself, is not being awake in bed that's the problem. It's being awake and anxious, stressed and worried state. And so if you're going to bed and you're reading before you go to sleep, as long as you're calm, you're happy, you're relaxed, absolutely fantastic. And say you wake up in the middle of the night, if you want to escape the bed in the bedroom, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to instead just simply read in bed, that's also wonderful as well, because what you're doing here is you're reducing that anxiety around sleep. So yes, certainly don't turn the bed in the bedroom into an anxious, stressed, worried place. But good sleepers watch TV in bed. Blue light will not kill you. They listen to podcasts, they read books. They just don't have that anxiety and the obsession. So certainly you want to avoid anxiety when you're in bed, but a softer approach when it comes to insomnia than this really strict stimulus control, which is traditionally taught in CBTI. I get far better results when I've got that gentle, soft approach to the treatment. So.
Earlier in the video, I said this is not something that you want to do on your own. This is something that you want to do with the help of a sleep specialist, psychologist, or somebody who's familiar with this technique. So what you do is you determine their average sleep time, and then you set up a bedtime that is equal to their sleep time. So let's say on a sleep diary, somebody says, I fall asleep at midnight and I wake up at 6. Well, then quite frankly, I want them to go to bed at midnight and get up at 6. We're going to restrict the amount of time that you can stay in bed. And we must make the wake up time consistent 7 days a week. No daytime naps are allowed because we want to build up sleep deprivation.
Yeah, again, he's very strict. We have to build up sleep deprivation. We are using sleep restriction as a sledgehammer to create and force and manufacture sleep. And what does this do to people with insomnia? It creates more anxiety around their sleep. And so this is a helpful technique when it's done in a softer way. And I think a softer way is something called the sleep window, where you're not tracking, you're not monitoring your sleep. I've got videos on my channel about that, and I'm going to queue them up at the end. And yes, a fixed wake time is good to help the body clock and the sleep drive anchor from that anchor point. But when you use language like you have to, strict, you must do this, control, force, effort, and it just puts people into a tailspin. Softly, gentle, patient, kind. My end goal when I'm working with people is to get them back to the same behaviors and thought patterns they used to have before they had insomnia. I really don't want any of this to turn into a battle when it comes to your sleep. I'm saying a lot of stuff, it sounds probably quite critical when I am reviewing this. I don't mean it to come across that way. I just know from all the work my own chronic insomnia for 20 years, how obsessive you can get and how controlling, how strict you are with yourself. You really don't want to transfer that into treatment because people start it, they feel they've done one thing wrong and they just throw everything out. And so, yeah, the middle way is so much more helpful. He has his way of doing it and maybe you resonate with that. Not for me to say. So
build it up naturally so that way you fall asleep quickly and you stay asleep. I will tell you, it takes people aback at first because they say to me, you know what, Dr. Bruce, I was just so exhausted. I figured I'd get in bed at 8 o'clock just in case I fell asleep so I could catch up on my sleep. Remember, sleep does not work that way. While you might be exhausted because of whatever, because you haven't slept in a long time, you still have a circadian rhythm, and melatonin only comes off at certain times based on something called your chronotype. So at the end of the day, sleep restriction can be very, very effective if you do it with a professional.
And the chronotype thing has been massively overblown. You know, if you fix your wake time at say you want to wake up late because you work in a bar, you wake up late and then your body clock and your sleep drive is set later, so you will start producing melatonin later. If you then become a baker and you start waking up at say 4 a.m., you'll set your body clock and your sleep drive to that earlier time, and your body clock will start producing melatonin earlier in the evening. So I think sleep chronotype is more of a circadian preference than this fixed rule. Otherwise, if that wasn't the case, you wouldn't be able to move between time zones. You'd just be stuck on one fixed body clock. And so you could certainly move your body clock.
Now, one of my favorite things to do, and I include this in almost every type of therapy, is some form of meditation and relaxation. My favorite is something called progressive muscle relaxation. This is really cool, where you actually tense and relax your muscles, starting at your toes and going all the way up to the top of your head. Personally, I've never made it all the way through because I fall asleep when I'm doing it, but it's a great relaxation tool that I personally use quite a bit. Now, there's also something called
it is helpful to do relaxing things in bed, and certainly some people can find progressive muscle relaxation helpful. A distraction technique is another one where you just simply repeat the word "the" in your head, because if you're distracting your thoughts, you can't latch on to other ones and they don't then start catastrophizing. However, don't do anything with the intention of trying to force yourself to sleep, because if you do that, it's like trying to force your hair to turn blue. Incredibly hard. Well, impossible, and certainly impossible for me to do that. So yeah, some people find this kind of stuff really helpful, but you do it with the right intention, just to help you feel calm, relaxed, and happy, not to try and force yourself to sleep.
Diaphragmatic breathing, which is where you are taking big, deep belly breaths. I talk about this in several different videos on stretching and breathing and things of that nature. This can be very, very helpful, but the best part that it does is it forces you to focus on your breathing, not the monkey mind that's going on inside your head. And so with a lot of people, when I have them breathing, I have them counting, because it's very difficult to count and think of something else at the same time. So for example, 4, 7, 8 breathing is a great technique that I teach a lot of my patients, because it helps lower their heart rate below 60. It forces them to think about the counting, which makes them not think about something else. And lo and behold, the natural sleep process takes over and they're doing much better. Meditation and guided imagery work roughly the same way. It really just depends upon what mode do you want to be in. Do you want to be in a guided imagery mode where you're listening to somebody tell you about a beautiful image? Or do you want to do meditation? Do you want to do gratitude? Do you want to do breathing? I don't care. But what I want you to do is give yourself enough runway to land the plane. So when you've got insomnia, one of the biggest things to be able to do is learn how to relax your body. And sometimes you can do that just before sleeping, or even if you wake up in the middle of the night. Now I want to get to the biggie.
Yeah. So it's helpful. That's the end goal, to help you feel just as relaxed in bed as you are asleep. And certainly these things he shared can help you in that given moment. I would say, if you're ever in that point where you're trying the guided imagery, you're trying the deep breathing, and you just feel, sleep just isn't happening, that is when I would then put the fire out before it turns into a full blaze. Sit up in bed, podcast, book, Netflix is fine. This blue light thing's been massively overblown, just to bring you out of that stress and anxious state. So yeah, do these things, but do them with the right intention. And if you feel it's just not happening, then yeah, stimulus control, where you leave the bed and the bedroom if becoming anxious, stressed, and worried. If you really want to escape the bed and the bedroom, if that's not you, you just feel, I just don't like being in this place where I'm anxious and stressed, but I don't want to leave the bed and the bedroom. Or maybe you've got mobility issues, then simply fine to read a book in bed or podcast to bring you out of that state.
Which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So here's what's really interesting is we know that cognitive behavioral therapy for depression works exceedingly well. And it turns out that some of the distorted thinking that happens in depression also happens with sleep. So as an example, if somebody has performance anxiety, like right before they go to bed, they start to get anxious, guess what? That causes heightened arousal, which leads to insomnia. If you have unrealistic...
Yes, so performance anxiety, it's really important that I sleep tonight, otherwise these dreadful, terrible things are going to happen to me tomorrow. This catastrophizing that all people with insomnia have, that if I sleep well tonight, I'm going to have an amazing day tomorrow. If I sleep poorly tonight, I'm going to have an awful day tomorrow. Forget about the fact that I've had, before my insomnia, I could have a poor night of sleep and have a great day because everything went well for me. I ate well, I exercised, great day at work. And other times I've had, when I was a good sleeper, a great night of sleep and then had a bad day the next day. When I've got insomnia, it's all or nothing thinking. But so he's talking about performance anxiety. But yeah, earlier in the video, he said that sleep was a performance thing where you've got to perform really well with why you should be buying a new mattress. And so it seems to be somewhat of a contradiction.
Expectations like, I need to sleep every single night for 8 hours and 14 minutes. I got news for you. That isn't going to happen. Or maybe you feel hopeless because you can't figure out how to fall asleep. All of these things cause a heightened level of arousal. So we use cognitive therapy to address those things. And what ends up happening is we now make people hopeful. We now give people realistic expectations, and we don't have performance anxiety. They know and understand what they're capable of. This reduces the arousal and leads to sleep.
Okay, yeah, and that's true. This realistic expectations that you need to get X hours of sleep per night simply are not true. First of all, not everyone on the planet needs 8 hours of sleep. In fact, that's at the top end. Sleep is like shoe size, and everyone does not need 8 hours. 7 hours is fairly typical. Some people do good on 6, some are even on 5 if they're a short sleeper. So this idea that you need to get 8 hours of sleep is completely wrong. And nice analogy, pastry dish. Imagine you've got an 8-inch pastry dish versus someone who believes they need 8 hours of sleep, but they only need 6.5 hours of sleep. What are you going to do for those 1.5 hours when you're in bed? You're going to be in bed awake. And even if you do feel you need 6.5 hours of sleep, that doesn't mean you're going to get that every single night. So even good sleepers, they have some nights where they sleep more, some nights when they sleep less. A great way, I think, of thinking about sleep is to think about your sleep over a month, for example. And it will go up and down throughout that month, but it won't be consistent, it won't be regular, but you will average your average amount of sleep over that month. So yeah, this is good advice when it comes to insomnia.
The thing that you have to understand is everybody out there can actually control their own sleep. By using the principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, I have personally found for myself, as well as for almost all of my patients, that this is the way to go. The last one is called circadian.
You can control your sleep, but in the right way. So you cannot control your sleep by forcing yourself to sleep in the given moment, but certainly you can control your long-term behaviors around your sleep. So waking up at the same time every single day, you don't need to be obsessive. You don't need to be ritualistic, but certainly when you're first starting this treatment, it's helpful to do that. Go into bed when you are sleepy, giving yourself enough sleep opportunity, but not too much. And essentially living your life and living your days like a normal sleeper. So no Facebook, no Reddit forums, no completely obsessive ritualistic behaviors. I'd bin the 1,000 rituals you have to do in order to try and sleep, the 1,000 of things you have to do in order to try and protect your sleep, and just get back to the core things that you used to do when you're a good sleeper. Or if that's been so long then you can't remember, ask yourself the question, is this something a good sleeper would do? Is this something a good sleeper would overanalyze and obsess about? And 99% of the time, this will send you down the right path. So yeah, it is possible to control your sleep, but control it in the right way, not in a given moment. I cannot force myself to sleep tonight because sleep is a natural physiological process, but I can control my behaviors. And then once you get your behaviors working for you, rather than against you, your body clock and your sleep drive will start working for you. Your sleep will become predictable, it will become consistent. Once that happens, then your thought patterns around sleep start to shift.
Re-entrainment. This is also something that I like to use in addition to CBTI, along with relaxation therapy and good sleep hygiene. But this forces you to use light and melatonin to bookend your sleep into a certain time. So as an example, let's say that you are a super extreme night owl and you could only fall asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you could only wake up at, let's say, 11 o'clock the next day. Well, what we would do then is we would use bright light therapy and literally push your circadian rhythm backwards and give you melatonin at that particular time. But I'm going to be honest with you, very, very few people are that far off in terms of their circadian rhythm. What most people are is off against their chronotype. Now, you might not know what a chronotype is, but you've actually heard of the concept. And if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I'm a big chronotype guy. Your chronotype is your
And I'm not a big chronotype guy. Not at all. I think it's behavioral. I think it's preference. Unless you've got a circadian rhythm disorder, everyone has a preference towards a certain time. And then people think, well, I'm a night owl, therefore I cannot get up early. Trust me, if you started waking up 5 a.m., your body clock and your sleep drive will respond, and you get bright light first thing, you will set your body clock to an earlier time. So I think the sleep chronotype has been massively overblown. Oh, I'm an early riser. No, you change your behaviors. You will fix your sleep time to a certain point in the morning, and everything will follow from there.
Internal genetic sleep schedule that might make you an early bird or a night owl. If you don't know which one you are, and actually a lot of people think they're one and they turn out to be another, do me a favor, go over to sleepdoctor.com and take our quiz to figure out what your natural circadian rhythm is. Once you get that down, then you actually know when your body wants to sleep. So here's the good news is every single one of these therapies does appear to work. Some appear to work better than others. So stimulus control, sleep restriction, and relaxation appear to work about the same, but if you combine them in what we call a multi-component therapy, we actually see a much bigger effect. These have an effect specifically on your ability to fall asleep, or what we call sleep onset latency, And we also know that all of them in the exact same dial-up actually end up changing your wake after sleep onset, meaning that it's actually lowered after you have treatment. So there's two things that we look at for insomnia treatment. We look at how quickly you fall asleep, and we look at how many times you wake up afterwards. Every single one of the...
This isn't all I look at, yes, that is a part of insomnia, of course. Struggle to fall asleep, trouble staying asleep, waking up too early in the morning. Insomnia follows the same path. You change your behavior, spending too long in bed. You become obsessive around sleep during the daytime. So as well as your actual sleep, when I'm working with people, I'm really interested in how far down the rabbit hole you have tripped with your obsession, your anxiety, your control around sleep. This is the marker of insomnia, because even good sleepers will have trouble sleeping, but it's the thought patterns around sleep which really show to me how far down that rabbit hole you've gone. So yeah,
treatments that I have explained so far does appear to lower all of that. So less awakenings and lower sleep onset, which is exactly what we're looking for. Again, the multi-component appears to do the most good for almost all people. I like to have a practical approach, as you've seen me say. So number one, review your sleep hygiene. Limit your time in bed. Try to establish that regular wake-up time based on your chronotype. Try to go to bed only when sleepy. And
he did say go to bed when sleepy. Yeah, fantastic. So I not criticized him earlier when he said, that fixed wake time. This is fantastic. Go into bed when you're sleepy. 100%, I agree with that. Yeah,
do me a favor, get out of bed if you can't sleep.
Personally, I think you can stay in bed and read a book. In my personal opinion, you don't need to be super strict with stimulus control.
Oftentimes, I'm using what's called the combined approach. So I might work with a patient's doctor and I might say, hey, we've got somebody who's only sleeping 3, maybe 4 hours a night. It's going to be hard to teach them the sleep hygiene and the stimulus control and all of those different things because they're just getting such a small amount of sleep. So sometimes we might use a pharmacologic intervention to break the cycle of insomnia. Keep them on drug for, let's say, 3 to 4 months, then begin to taper them off of drug while doing the sleep hygiene, sleep education, stimulus control, sleep restriction, and behavioral components. This way, we can attack it much faster depending upon the severity of the disorder.
Yeah, most people that I'm working with, they are on sleeping tablets. And I never say to them, you must come off sleeping tablets in order to overcome this. Usually I say, look, take what you're currently being prescribed. Once you've got that confidence back in your innate ability to sleep, then you're more confident to slowly start reducing that dose, but never force, never effort. Don't feel like I can't do CBTI without first coming off sleeping tablets. 100%, you can still be on sleeping tablets. Will get your sleep improved. Even when you're taking sleeping tablets, your sleep will improve. And then that thing you think, I need to take sleeping tablets in order to sleep, that confidence is getting built, but you can sleep without them. And then you'll slowly start reducing them down at a rate and speed that are helpful to you. And that's why I always recommend the slow taper, in line with the recommendation of your doctor, of course.
A lot of patients like this idea because they can utilize the pharmacologic intervention for a short period of time to kind of get them over that hump and then teach them the skills so that way they have much more successful sleep in their future. But look, I really believe in the effectiveness of CBTI and some of these other methods, and I've actually seen it be a life changer for a large number of my patients. Yeah. Let me know in the comments if you've tried CBTI and what your experience was. This is Dr. Michael Bruce, the Sleep Doctor, wishing you sweet dreams.
Okay, I hope I didn't come across as too overly critical there. I think some of the core stuff were fantastic. CBTI, going to bed when you're sleepy, waking up at the same time every day. He didn't go into these tips and tricks and hacks, which was fantastic. I just think perhaps his approach to CBTI is a little bit more strict than my own. Maybe you like his approach and you prefer that. And that's absolutely fine. I'm not dogmatic about it, but if you prefer this more intuitive approach, then hopefully you like the way I do things. And if you do like the way I do things and you want to work with me one-to-one, check out my website, sleepz.com, where you can do exactly that. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want 5 proven tips to overcome your insomnia from tonight, have a look at this video here. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.